Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsy69 and welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at the top 5 tanks that were once OP. Now we have had the top 5 shit tanks that Wargaming have made OP, and now we're going to have a look at the top 5 tanks that were OP but no longer are. I wouldn't say that they are now shit. I was going to do sort of, because I did a top 5 shit tanks that are now OP, I was going to do a top 5 OP tanks that are now shit, but you know, I thought I'd change it up a little bit because these were completely broken back in the day, but now a few of them are shit and a few of them are just sort of a-okay. But yeah, some of them you'd actually be surprised, like this tank right here, the SP1C. When this tank was first released, like the whole line with the Lux, the Leopard, the RU251, this tank was insane. It was really insane. It has the autoloader, which it has now, but the reload, I think the reload was like 2.5 seconds in between each shell. Now it's sort of 3 seconds, and the full magazine reload was sort of much less than it is now. And when you rolled 2 of these in a platoon, this tank, even though it had no armor, it had the speed, and that speed was its armor to get away, use its autoloader, get away, and just sort of get the hell out of there, relocate, and then go and attack someone else. And when there's 2 of you, you had 4 shells between you, so you could literally tear a tank apart, especially in tier 6. You rush together, and you used to just be able to sort of clear a tier 6 tank without sort of reloading, sort of 2.5 seconds, and that guy is gone. Nowadays, obviously, this tank is just bullied. This tank is bullied. People bully this tank. They see an SP1C and they're like, they just bully it. They really do bully it. They either load the HE, or a lot of tanks, because it's so light and so small, they just go and ram it. People love ramming a SP1C. Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. I did it in a previous video where it's just, I did an SP1V video and I just named it. It's like, stop bullying me. I don't like to be bullied no more. I've been bullied for long enough. And I think Wargaming should actually put this tank back to how it was. Let the SP1C do a bit of bullying for a change. Like, it's been bullied for so long. Let him do the bullying. Because nowadays, people don't like the tank. It's not a great tank, and it can do the job, but it isn't the greatest tanks of tanks. And I do think Wargaming should, I think they should buff it to how it was. I really do. See how it pans out now with all the OP tanks. Obviously, back then when it was OP, we didn't have all these OP tanks. We didn't have the Smashers, we didn't have the Annihilators, and there was only a couple of tanks that really sort of could hurt the SP1C. The KV2, the SU152, and of course the ISU152 in tier 8, etc. But nowadays, almost anything. I mean, you have Draculas just go and ram it for full hit points. So yeah, the SP1C, when that was first released, was insane. Another tank that was absolutely insane when this tank was first released was, of course, the T49. Now, the T49 hasn't changed so much, but what Wargaming did change about it, because it was broken as hell, is the module damage percent chance, the chance of destroying a module damage. And as it happens, the module damage was its ammo rack, so you could pretty much guarantee an ammo rack every single game. Every game, doesn't matter what tank it was. You go up to any tank, shoot heat, and it's gone. AT-15s were the best. Just go up behind an AT-15, shoot the back of its turret, gone. Used to be able to just get insane amount of damage very quickly because of the ammo racks. Now, me and Bob, one of my clan friends, we used to run double these, and we used to get sort of 2-3 ammo racks between us every single game. No kidding. Like, people won't understand. Like, people will think I'm exaggerating when you say, yeah, we had 3 ammo racks every game. Honestly, it wasn't as bad as the T49A, where the T49A was even more broken than this thing, and you could pretty much get 4 to 5 ammo racks every single game. Yeah, these tanks were seriously broken, and the only way to defend yourself against a T-49 back then was in a T-49A. Literally, the T-49A was a tier 7 with the missiles, and it used to just, you shoot HE anywhere at the front of the T-49, boom, gone. So literally the only thing that could outsmart a T-49 was a T-49A. Very, very fun back in the day. I mean, it's still a funnish tank, nowhere near as fun as it once was. We used to love doing two ammo racks every game, 4k damage or 3.5k damage with 2 shots, no problem whatsoever. So yeah, that was a tank that was insanely broken back in the day. Another tank back in the day insanely broke was the IS-6. Now the IS-6 hasn't really changed. In fact, the only change is had it actually a buff recently, an armor buff, which I've been playing the IS-6 for some footage for a couple of videos. I can't really now tell the difference. I keep getting penned, I don't bounce too much, so it's still, in my opinion, just an average tank that's just been overwhelmed by all these newer OP tier 8 tanks. But back in the day, like my video the other day, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, depending on when I'll release this video, this tank had preferential matchmaking, so it would only see tier 9 back in the back when it was +2 -2 matchmaking. This had preferential matchmaking, so it would only see tier 9, but it would see tier 6s. So 2 of these in a platoon up against tier 6s a lot of the time was crazy, absolutely crazy. And again, don't forget, we had no premium tanks back then. Absolutely none. There was nothing you could really buy in the shop. There was no defenders, there was no Object 252Us, there was nothing like that. So everyone used to just go and buy tech tree tanks. That's because that is all there was. And the IS-6 was that #1 choice. That was the #1 choice. Everyone, if you was going to buy a tech tree premium tank, it was always going to be the IS-6. That would be your first choice. So the IS-6, when I first started in the game, was absolutely crazy. It was a fun tank to play, only if you sort of roll out 2 of these in a platoon, because that means you'd always be sort of not top tier, but you would only see tier 9, and you would also see tier 6 a lot, and you used to just be able to wreck everyone. The IS-6 was definitely a win rate farmer a few years ago. Another tank which was crazy, and now this was one of the most broken tanks in the game when this was first released. It is the Charioteer. Now, as we know, the Charioteer has a gun with Hesh, and it has lovely Hesh. It can almost pen just about anything. And if you guys have played the FV4202 or the Centurion 7-1, this is pretty much the same gun. It had the same gun as the FV4202, but this was tier 8. This was a tank destroyer, and the reload was literally like 5 seconds. Look at the reload now, you're looking at 9 seconds reload. This was 5 seconds. This tank is still a good tank. So imagine this shooting Hesh at 400+ damage every single shot with a 5-second reload. Of course, it had the speed boost, which it still does, on to go on top of that. Now, I did do a video, it was actually on this map when this tank was first released, of someone doing 8,000+ damage. Go check it out. Just type in Charioteer, sort of Hall of Fame or whatever, I can't remember what I called it, and you'll see just how overpowered this tank was when it was first released. It was so overpowered that when Wargaming nerfed the thing, they literally, it was just like, do you know what, I really don't want to play this tank again. I want to keep the tank how I remember it. That means I don't want to go and play it. I don't want to be sort of disappointed with it, because this was such a fun tank to play when it was broken. Of course, every tank is fun to play when it's broken, but when it's as broken as this, I mean, you could pen any heavy side on. You could pen any heavy bottom plate. You're in a TD, yes, it didn't have no armor, but you didn't care. You didn't care. You was dealing sort of Hesh damage to the front of all these tanks and then just using the speed boost to run away. So I didn't play the tank for probably well over a year, because I just didn't want to. I see the stats and I think Wargaming have completely broken this thing the other way now. It used to be broken good, and now it's just broken shit. But I did go and play it, and actually it's still a good tank. It is still a good tank, and those of you that have started playing it, you will never understand just how broken the tank was. And lastly, another tank that was insanely OP was the VK100. Now, played correctly, this is still a good tank. It still is a good tank. The armor profile is okay in certain situations, but again, when this tank was first released, just again go back and look at my video, the top 5 most overpowered tanks in World of Tanks Blitz. This was up there. This was up there, number 1, number 2, I can't remember what it was, number 2 or something like that. Now, when it was first released, you see the hatch on top, people aim at the hatch on top. That wasn't like that. You used to never be able to pen the hatch on this thing. It used to be red as hell. The armor, other than that, the rest of the armor was, I mean, pretty much still the same. But that hatch on top is a big weak point now. And when you're sort of hull down, when you're sort of angled a tiny bit, not too much, and people will just go and try and go for that hatch now. But back then, they didn't used to be able to do that. It was crazy. It really was crazy. And the motion was pretty much the same. And when these tanks first come out, I actually said on record with my motion, the tier 9 version of this, I actually said that that could probably be my most favorite heavy in the game. But now it is completely changed. The motion is just a meh tank. It's just a big barrel of armor that, for me, it's 3 hit points. Most VK100 drivers don't really know how to drive it because your armor now is just not there. If you angle too much, the armor's gone. You have to angle just right in this thing, and it's very hard to do that now when it doesn't have that hatch on top. So that is my top 5 tanks that were once overpowered but not no more. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Let me know what you think in the description, in the comments, what overpowered tanks you think were when you was in the game a few years ago. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Meaty, and I'll catch you soon. With